You're listening to the 4-Phase Cycle podcast with your hosts, Dr. Alex and Megan of ZESTY Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you've definitely come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and best friends, we use the 4 phases of the female cycle in combination with functional lab work and mindset practices to transform the lives of the women we work with.
We also have a whole lot of fun along the way. If you're new around here, it's best to start with season 1 before jumping around and plan to roll up your sleeves. Showing up for ourselves and enjoying our lives is what good health is all about. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making changes.
Hello, Alex here. Thank you so much for joining me for another podcast episode. Today is going to be a little bit on the shorter side, and that is because I am sharing some food for thought. Now, I don't know if this topic is going to be generalizable to everybody. I mean, just like everything else. However, it's one thing that has come up for me quite strongly recently, and so it's been something I've been mulling over. And so this is one of those where if it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, cool, because I do think that this topic is individualized and it's very important on the interpretation and what we make something mean. However, I wanted to talk about this topic today because I'm in the category of the conventional discussion around this doesn't necessarily work for me, right? And so if it works for you, that's awesome. That's why it's out there. And I figure, as with all of this stuff, like we love Jim Fortin, and he always says what's most personal is most general. And we have definitely found that to be true, is that more often than not, where it's not like you're the only one sitting there wondering if you're the odd one out. And this has certainly been true for me. So, one of the things that I routinely see on the internet, and especially in the world of self development, whatever flavor that you like for that, one concept that I see over and over again is this discussion of trauma or problems make you stronger, right? And especially with trauma, just I know I say this routinely when we're talking about trauma, but I don't mean just capital T trauma of like the big ones, right? Abuse and uh, really dire situations, repetitive trauma in the form of repetitive events where you felt out of control, unsafe, diminished in some way can add up to trauma. And there's been podcast episodes where we talk about the brain and that, right? So I won't go into it here. But either way, whether it's big T trauma, little t trauma, right, whatever you got, whatever you get to is that's the end result. Now, then the interpretation and the meaning, in my opinion, is what really allows us to not only get to a place where we've processed it, but then get the kind of gold nuggets from it and then move that forward. But the narrative of that, in my experience, has to apply. Otherwise, you're kind of in my category where you see things that people are talking about and you're like, that just doesn't even resonate with me, right? So this is what was happening for me when I kept seeing things like, yeah, the things that happen make you stronger. Now, in some ways, I completely agree, right? It's the growth opportunities of things happen. We are picking up new strategies, new ways of being, stepping into a new identity. All of that is super awesome, and I follow and I do, and all of that is cool. However, on some topics, I was starting to feel a little bit like I don't believe, then this is, I'm talking from my standpoint. I'm like, I don't think that trauma, that particular, like a big thing that happened in my life, I don't think that trauma made me stronger, right? I think that I was really strong, and that is why I was able to get through the trauma in the way that I have. Do you see how that's very, very different? And again, if it's one of those like, if you rally behind and feel really good about, yeah, the trauma made me stronger, cool. However, when I was thinking about it, I was like, that to me, it felt like I was actually continuing to still give away my power to that person because I was sitting there being like, you had to have done that to me in order for me to get stronger. And that really continued to put a chink in my armor and really make me feel like, well, I'm basically saying this is what I needed to happen. Now, once it has happened, making the most of it and getting the most, you know, learnings and insight and sort of self reliance on who you are is a phenomenal way to move through something like that happening. However, that's different than saying it needed to happen so that I had to become that because, at least for me, I was like, no, my response to the trauma is proof of how strong I am, not because I am saying that person had to have traumatized me for me to become strong. That I did not jive with. And what came to mind when I was thinking of parallels, because I obviously like to broaden out, like, how does this topic apply to other things? Happens in health all the time, right? And you hear people like Megan and I sharing our stories, and they're not pretty a lot of times, right? They're lots of years of struggle, lots of second guessing, lots of negative encounters with healthcare providers, and we did make the best of it. And so you do hear us acknowledging that we learned a lot and now we are putting that to use, right? That's what the podcast is about. That's what our programs are about. That's how we help people. And yet, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing if we actually bought into it that everyone needed to follow that same path and it had to be as hard for everyone in order to get there, right? What we're saying is people are strong, people are healthy, they deserve to be healthy. That's who they are. Therefore, do they really need to go through the struggles? We don't think so, which is why we help people out and put things out there, and that's our whole point, right? And so it's that same thing here of, to me, it almost set me up to look for new ways of, what other trauma is going to make me stronger. When I realized, I was like, I'm not interested in growing in that way anymore. That happened, okay, but I'm not going to continually put myself in those positions. I'm plenty strong enough, and I no longer feel the need to prove that to myself, right? So letting go of the struggle and no longer giving the power over to the person, like, thank you for doing that. Thank you for turning me into who I am. It's a fine line to walk, but there's something about that I think in not all instances that lines up beautifully, right? So, anyways, this is not an episode about what I think you should think about it. This is simply me bringing up the concept to say, what are your thoughts around this, right? How are we hanging our hats on negative things need to happen, and that's how I get my lessons, right? To changing the script of that is sometimes the case, that has happened to me in the past. I even had very good things that I responded with that I'm very proud of. But now moving forward, do I want that to be my reality? Do I want to reinforce that this is how I learn? Because just like we've talked about strategies in a million other ways on the podcast, there are other strategies, right? And for me, once I realized that, I was like, hey, that is just one little piece that didn't cause me to be powerful or strong. I just am, and that is why I responded the way I did. And I can use that to then improve my experience and even make more informed choices about how I want to learn about myself, about the world, all of that. But really, I'm no longer interested in the trauma and the struggle and the pain and the sorrow. I've had plenty. And I don't think that I'm going to sidestep, the things that happen as a human. And yet, that's different than saying I need those things to happen so that I continue to grow, and that is my impetus for growth. So it changes the script a lot. It flips it into, for me, that was much more empowering, right? And it really does come down to which way of thinking about it is going to allow you to stand in your own empowerment and feel like you are moving forward in a way that makes you feel good, that makes you feel congruent, that aligns your, body, heart, soul, mind, right? All of that cohesiveness, whatever way of thinking about it causes that effect. I think that's what we're going for. But I did realize that for me, the conventional way that we talk about this wasn't working. And so if you're in that category, maybe what I'm saying is also not working for you, right? But that's where we get to really sit with ourselves and say, well, out of all of these different options, what do I think? What is my interpretation? And the response then of what works is like an internal meter, right? I felt upset. I felt like, gosh, that's a crappy system, right? When I was trying to make my interpretation fit what I was hearing. And so this is the same for you. Mine may not work for you, or both of them may not work for you, but there will be something that resonates where you feel that, okay, that one resonates, that one vibes with me. And now with that feeling, I can look around, I'm resourceful, I'm thinking of what works best for me, right? Anything that puts us into the state of solutions, of answers, of moving forward, that's what we can hang our hat on. The things, even if there's a bunch of people saying it, when we hang our hat on something that actually makes us feel terrible, right? And further feels disempowering and not true for us, that's where it takes courage sometimes to say, I know a lot of people are saying it. I know there's a lot of memes on the internet. I know that there's books written about this. And yet, I'm sorry, but that's not something that I am going to make myself fit into. And I was just editorializing them. Sorry, there's nothing to apologize for. But like that's the feeling that we get. You're basically like, I know, I see you. And no, thank you. I'm good. So anyways, more of that, right, is a lot of what we need. More empowerment, more feeling sturdy on our own. And that is what I encourage you to do as you kind of chew on these concepts and figure out of all the things that are going on between my two ears, how am I best set up to think about it and chew on it so that I get the outcome that I want, which is to live the life that I feel like I deserve and that I have my sights set on. Alrighty, with that, have a great, great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for coming out to hang with us on the podcast. It is our goal to transform the way women are treated in healthcare. And we need your help. We need your help to get the word out. We have a lofty goal of 1 million downloads. And we know that as this podcast grows, we're going to be able to reach more women, get more amazing speakers for you, and bring the most cutting-edge information.
If you found these podclasses helpful, please take a moment to text 5 women you know the link to the series. We appreciate your help so much. Can't wait to see you next time.